This is the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. Coming your way on today's show, a mailbag where I take all of your questions. But first, every single week following our YouTube show, as we go live every single Tuesday, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, that will be the schedule moving forward. We do a live podcast on call-in, which is like Twitter Spaces, but even better. You have an opportunity to call into the show, and we can interact. So make sure you join us every single week after our YouTube and Rumble show wraps up by downloading the app on your iPhone or Android. It's chatsports.com/49ers call in. Start off this mailbag with this super chat coming in from Mr. Black Ice 22. Our running backs will be the key for Trey, your running back lineup. I agree. And Trey Lance kind of struggled on day 2 of training camp. He completed 50% of his passes, threw an interception to Jimmy Ward, who we didn't see dropping back in coverage. But this is coming after a day 1 in which he looked really crisp and looked in control of the offense. And while he didn't uncork any deep balls, he was completing the short and intermediate throws. I like that. Why? Trey Lance has to prove he can do the small things and the easy things at a very good level, because the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they display that accuracy to complete the easy balls. But he struggles in day 2 with the patchwork offensive line, no Deebo Samuel. That's why if he struggles throughout camp, you shouldn't hit the panic button, because the offensive line is patchwork right now, no Deebo Samuel, and going to your point, Mr. Black Ice, you can't really run the football if you're not padded up. And this 49ers offense relies heavily on that outside zone scheme and power running football. And that will only benefit Trey Lance. Off the play action, day 1 of training camp, he was able to use that to his advantage, fake the defense out on a quarterback rollout, picked up a nice gain with his legs. You know who's not doing that? Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's part of what Garoppolo can't do that Lance can, that he can bring to this offense in addition to running the football. Now, as far as my running back lineup, you got to go Elijah Mitchell 1, as long as he's healthy coming off that knee. After that, I really don't know. Kyle Shanahan was saying that Trey Sermon looks swole and bulked up. He should be the number 2 after being a third-round pick 2 years ago. Ty Davis-Price at 3, Jeff Wilson at 4, and we'll see if they keep 5 backs. If that's the case, maybe they go with JaMychal Hasty. But as of right now, that's my best crack at what I kind of want the 49ers running back lineup to shake out to be and what I think is going to happen. $10 super chat from Niners, Giants, Warriors all day. 2 donations to kick off the bag. Keep in mind that there have been numerous quarterbacks that have lost their number 1 wide receivers and still found a way to make another wide receiver star while still managing 4,000-plus passing yard seasons. Yes, there's no question about that. You have a good point. Also, though, this is Trey Lance taking over the helm as the starting quarterback for the first time. This is his second practice as the bona fide starting quarterback of this football team. And on top of not having Deebo Samuel, the offensive line is in flux right now. And it's very, very early for a guy who still is only 22 years old, was drafted when he was 20. I've said this, I'll continue to say it. There are going to be bumps along the road for Trey, but luckily for him, he has Kyle Shanahan. He has legitimate weapons on the offensive side. Hopefully Trent Williams comes back soon to start protecting his blind side, and a really good defense. So all of the pressure won't be on Lance. And you think about what Jimmy Garoppolo did for this team back in 2019, it's not like he was chucking the ball 30, 40 times. So it's going to be a similar path this year for this offense with Lance like it was back in 2019, in the sense that you're not putting too much on Trey Lance's plate. 2 super chats, that's why I'm drinking this beer. Cheers to the gang. Let's go to Frank Gore now. If an injury happens at wide receiver, would Odell Beckham Jr. be a good idea? Last case scenario. I'd bring in OBJ for sure if there was a big injury at that wide receiver spot. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But if Deebo were to get hurt, even if he suffered one of those soft tissue injuries, which happened to linger for a long time, and he's had trouble with those types of ailments, then if he's missing 2 months, why not bring in OBJ, who when Deebo comes back can be your wide receiver 3 operating out of the slot. You have him and Javon Jennings. Jennings gives you size, and OBJ gives you a little burst. Shoot, if Brandon Aiyuk gets injured, OBJ would be a great number 2. That's what he was last year for the Los Angeles Rams en route to the Super Bowl, and he played really good football with Matthew Stafford. So I'd say right now, Niners don't need him because this receiving core is pretty solid. Deebo at the 1, Aiyuk is the number 2, Juwan Jennings probably the 3, and then Danny Gray, Ray McLeod interchanging at those 4 and 5 spots. What do you think the Niners should do with OBJ? You want to sign him? Then type OBJ for yes. If you don't want to sign him, then type no BJ for no. Next up, it's Sean James, $5 super chat. If Lance doesn't take us deep into the playoffs this season, is he a bust? No. It's his first official season as a starter. And I know that in nowadays NFL, and especially with quarterbacks now, with all of these offseason camps, all of the resources, both with coaches, quarterback trainers, developers, coaches, and film, as well as some analytical stuff, that quarterbacks should be able to get a grasp of the NFL game within a season. But a true evaluation of a quarterback, especially a guy who you selected at number 3, you probably want to give him 20 to 30 games to see if he can be the guy. And if he clearly isn't this year, if he's just god-awful, then you have to start thinking about ways to upgrade the quarterback spot. But if he doesn't take you on a deep run in the playoffs in his first year as a starter, he will not be a bust. It kind of comes down to how he actually plays. Steven Herrera, when do you think Deebo Samuel is going to get paid? My hope is that Deebo gets paid over the next couple of days. That would be ideal. You get him on the practice field, and he starts getting in those reps with quarterback Trey Lance. And this offense, just not the same without Deebo. He's so explosive on a variety of ways to his utilization. You can throw him a bubble screen, and like in the NFC Championship game, on that quick little throw out to the outside, he caught it vertical to the line, or perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, and took it to the house 45 yards with some breakaway speed. Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. That play was drawn up for him. He's able to take it to the crib, make guys miss, and then pull away from them. Like, he just does so many things to bail you out. And for Lance, that could be the ultimate security blanket on top of having Aiyuk, Kittle, Jawan Jennings, a big slot, the rookie Danny Gray, Ray McLeod is your gadget guy, and a really good running game. So hopefully Samuel gets paid soon. That way he can get on the practice field because currently he's holding in. Adrian Avila, what do you think on Cam Newton coming to San Francisco as a backup to Trey Lance? Let's see what happens with Garoppolo first. If he's on this roster week 1, his base salary becomes guaranteed at $24.2 million. And I just don't see how the 49ers would pay that without a restructure. And if they trade him away, Garoppolo, or if they cut him, and let's say Nate Sudfeld maybe gets injured or struggles throughout training camp in the preseason, then you start to get a little bit desperate. And I think Cam Newton would be desperate, but could Kyle Shanahan draw some stuff up to rely on his legs because he's not a great passer and you can at least get by for a couple of weeks? Maybe, but way down the road, last resort for that. Evan Hinders with this one, should the Niners sign Kevin King? I don't know about Kevin King. I don't really think he adds all that much. I actually think this Niners roster, outside of backup quarterback and outside of offensive line, is pretty good. For the offensive line, in terms of depth, they just need these young guys to step up. But everywhere else, I kind of like the roster, and they don't really need that many more acquisitions. I am curious here with this next question on our mailbag. We have more than 60,000 subs. Thousands of people join us. Sometimes millions of people join us every single month, depending on the calendar year. And we have people tuned in of all demographics, of all ages, and people are tuned in from all across the globe. So I want to know this. What's the first Niners game you ever went to? Share your memory. Share your best experiences in the comment section right now. I'm going to go back and chop it up with all of you to see what you all say because those memories are certainly special. Also, here on the 49ers Report, we're growing on YouTube, 60,000 subs. We're growing on Rumble, another platform that we put our content on. But also, we're growing the podcast game. Call-in is where it's at. It's like Twitter Spaces, but even better. And after our live shows every single week, we go live on Call-in so that I can take your calls. Chatsports.com/49ers call-in. Think Twitter Spaces, but even better. An opportunity for you to call into the show and interact with me as we just have an open forum conversation talking all the most relevant 49ers news and rumors. So I'm going to put those links to download the app on your iPhone or Android in the comment section and the description of this video. Mr. Macho 12, do you think the Niners will play Trey the entire preseason to allow him to get all the reps he can get? He's not going to play like every single quarter of every single game, but will he play all 3 games? I would not be surprised at all if Lance is at least in there for a drive every single game. He needs the experience, he needs the reps, and he needs to be groomed to be ready for a team that is constructed right now to compete for a Super Bowl. So if he does struggle, if he's looking a little green like a vegetable, then he's going to have to play at least a little bit in every preseason game, I believe. Dr. Jaspreet, A super chat legend from our watch parties last year, by the way. Can't wait to see us at full strength. Having backups out there on offense made Trey look bad today, and it has to be hard for Trey Lance's confidence. This guy has a great mental makeup, though, and this guy is, I think, emotionally and mentally stable. It's one of the reasons why I really liked him coming out of North Dakota State, because everybody was talking about him and raving about his character, how he carries himself, the work that he puts in, and the fact that he really doesn't get flustered much. Now, if an injury happens, if he's just awful and people are like, you got to bring back Garoppolo, this is awful, this is bad, this is ugly, then maybe his confidence will be altered a little bit. But you're right. Once the pads come on, it's even more paramount to have that offensive line intact and Deebo Samuel on the field and some of those other complementary weapons. Yes, great quarterbacks elevate their teammates, but also at the same time, for a young quarterback, you want him to have his full weaponry at his disposal. Chua, when does Nick Bosa get paid? Good question, because John Lynch talked about this when the 49ers reported to training camp back on Tuesday, that contract negotiations between the organization and Deebo are in a good spot right now. And both sides are kind of happy with where talks are leading. Nick Bosa, though, his deal, according to John Lynch, might not get done until next offseason. Now, yes, they're both members of that 2019 draft class, but because Nick Bosa was a first-round pick, he gets that extra fifth year. Deebo Samuel, picked in the second round, doesn't get that fifth year. So here he is going into the final year of his rookie deal with that base salary of $3.9 million. Bosa already guaranteed money in 2023, coming in at about $18 million. So a big gap there in terms of the prices and the contract. That's why the 49ers can wait until next offseason. But if he has 15 and a half sacks again, like he did this past year, he might get paid more than Aaron Donald and be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL with the market continuing to explode. Speaking of Bosa, and we've talked about Lance on the show today, which unit do you think will be better? This is a pretty good question here. Offense is Shanahan's specialty, but the defense is deep, loaded, and has a lot of legitimate premier talent. Give me an O for offense or a D for defense. David Delgado is also a real one. Can Jimmy Garoppolo get cut, and can he be re-signed for much cheaper? He would be a solid backup. So basically, you don't have to do all that and go through all those loopholes. All you got to do is do a contract restructure with Jimmy Garoppolo. That would be the wisest decision for the Niners financially. You just work out a contract restructure. Now, will Garoppolo be willing to take that restructure? Maybe not to stay in San Francisco. Maybe to go somewhere else, which would make sense, because there he can compete for a starting role. But with San Francisco, he might say, you know what? Trey Lance doesn't look good. I know it because I'm still on this team. I'm in a group chat with a couple of homies in the locker room. I know what the deal is. I'm not taking a pay cut. You guys need me. Bring me back at my base salary of $24 million. He can use that to his advantage with that leverage. Shane AZ 49ers Empire. Chase, you are famous. I've been hearing your name, Chase Sr., on other 49ers podcasts. Keep it up, my brother. That's pretty cool. Shane, can you let me know who? I'm actually interested in who's shouting out the 49ers report. They might be ripping me. They might be complimenting me. But Shane, if you want to let me know, man, that'd be awesome. I can put my Twitter handle. You see my Twitter handle, my Instagram handle or my Twitter handle. It's the same, at Chase_Senior. If you want to let me know, Shane, who's been chopping it up, talking about our coverage, that would be absolutely awesome. Another question coming in this mailbag. This one coming in from Julian Ross, Niner for life. He, too, just a real OG. How does Javon Kinlaw look, and will he have an impact for our defense? So because he's coming off that ACL surgery that did happen during the season, he's really not partaking in a lot of practice right now. And I don't expect that to be the case for a little while in terms of him being a full-go, 100% burst participant, fully displaying what he's capable of. Now, we've seen the offseason clips, right? Him working on the bags, getting some boxing in, working on that stamina, which I think is really important for him so that he doesn't get gassed with that larger frame, and him doing these other, weight exercises to build some strength. But really what it comes down to for Javon Kinlaw, you can look at the guy. He's physically imposing. He looks like a more cut Warren Sapp during his prime when he was a little bit slimmer playing for Miami. That's cool and all. He needs to be able to prove it actually on the football field. And that's what it comes down to for Javon Kinlaw. If he can't prove it on the field, and if he can't stay healthy, then he'll end up being one of the bigger busts for this organization over the last couple of years. Before we wrap up this mailbag, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you too can get your questions in during our live shows, and make sure you turn on those notifications. Therefore, when we go live, which is what we do when we answer these mailbags, or when we push out a video, when there's breaking news, a big report out there, we want to let you know, and we want you to be informed. So turn on those notifications and subscribe so you'll be the first one to tune into our videos. And as always, thanks for supporting the show.